I stood at the entrance to the grand ballroom, heart pounding from the effort I'd poured into this day. Every dollar for the venue, flowers, and lights coming from my own savings as a financial advisor. But scanning the tables, my name was nowhere on the seating chart. No chair, no place card. My sister Julia's wedding, the event I'd funded to bridge our fractured family, had erased me entirely. My parents caught my eye and shrugged with a chuckle that spread like wildfire through the guests, relatives, colleagues, all whispering as laughter rippled. The sting hit deep, not just exclusion, but the casual dismissal after years of me propping them up financially while they favored Julia. In that moment, confusion twisted into rage, then hardened into resolve. They thought I was invisible, but I would make them see the cost of their betrayal. 478 characters without spaces. The morning had started with fragile hope. I'd arrived early at the hotel, double-checking the arrangements I'd personally overseen. The floral arches I'd selected to match Julia's theme, the string lights I'd negotiated into the budget to create just the right ambience. As a 29-year-old running my own wealth management firm in Spokane, I'd covered the entire reception cost, over $50,000, believing it might finally earn me a place in the family circle. Julia, 3 years older and always the golden child, had barely acknowledged my texts about the details. She'd reply with curt approvals, while our parents praised her vision for the guest list, ignoring my role entirely. Doubts had been creeping in for weeks. Family dinners grew sparse. Invitations stopped coming after I shared successes at work, like landing a major client contract that doubled my firm's revenue. Instead, they'd pivot to Julia's latest advertising pitch, even when it flopped, bailing her out with loans from their savings I'd helped replenish through my advice on investments they never credited me for. That pattern gnawed at me, my straight-A scholarships in college dismissed as practical but boring, while Julia's creative ideas got endless support, including cash for her failed campaigns. I'd pushed down the resentment, telling myself blood ties meant enduring the imbalance. But now, standing amid the arriving guests, the air felt thicker, charged with unspoken exclusion. As the ceremony unfolded, I lingered at the back, watching Julia exchange vows with Kenneth. She glowed under the lights I'd chosen, her smile radiant as our parents beamed from the front row. I slipped a note to the coordinator earlier, confirming my seat near the family table. After all, I'd wired the deposit myself. Yet when the reception began and everyone settled, servers directed me away, murmuring about a full chart. My pulse quickened. I approached my parents discreetly, voice low. They exchanged a glance, then my father muttered something about a miscount, his tone light, almost amused. My mother nodded, avoiding my eyes, implying Julia had finalized the arrangements and space was tight. The dismissal landed like a quiet blow. Guests nearby overheard, their chuckles starting softly, cousins who'd benefited from my holiday gifts, colleagues from Julia's agency who'd ignored my outreach for business advice. I forced a nod, stepping back as the laughter built, each wave amplifying the isolation. Why fund this if I didn't belong? Memories flashed, childhood days trailing Julia, handing over my toys so she could shine, teen years covering her forgotten chores to keep peace, adult life wiring money for her emergencies, while my promotions went uncelebrated. The hope I'd clung to, that this wedding would mend the rift, cracked under the weight of their indifference. Tension coiled in my chest, breath shallow as I scanned the room again, willing my name to appear. It didn't. Julia caught my gaze from her table, her expression fleeting, pity, dismissal, before turning away to toast with Kenneth. Our parents joined in, their easy laughter cutting deeper than shouts. The event I'd built was unfolding without me, a stark mirror to years of being sidelined. Anger simmered beneath the hurt, not explosive yet, but building. How long had they planned this erasure? I retreated to a side alcove, phone in hand, fighting the urge to confront them outright. Instead, a text from my friend Nathan, an accountant I'd trusted since college, buzzed in. Check your accounts. Something's off. His warning, born from a casual review I'd asked for weeks ago, ignited the first spark of action amid the growing storm. Pulling up my banking app, the numbers blurred at first. Then clarity hit. $200,000 missing from my personal savings, the nest egg I'd built through late nights analyzing markets, the one I'd mentioned in passing during family calls. Transfers traced to accounts linked to Julia and Kenneth, dated just after I'd confirmed the wedding payment. No authorization from me. The betrayal sharpened everything. This wasn't oversight. It was theft, layered on the public slight. My hands trembled, not from fear, but from the cold realization that my family's favoritism had crossed into crime. The reception's joy mocked me now, guests clinking glasses while my world tilted. I pocketed the phone, resolve forming. No tears, no scene yet. But the peace I'd forced for years shattered, replaced by a steely determination to uncover the full extent and make them face it. The night was young, and so was the fight. The reception hall buzzed with clinking glasses and murmured toasts as I slipped away from the laughter still echoing from my parents' table. Nathan's text burned in my pocket, pulling me toward a quiet side room off the main area. I locked the door behind me, hands unsteady as I opened the banking app again. The missing $200,000 stared back. Transfers initiated 2 weeks prior, right after I'd confirmed the wedding deposit. Each one linked to Julia's email and Kenneth's account, approvals stamped with a digital signature mimicking my own loop on this. No alerts, no notifications. They'd bypass security using details only family would know, like the old password I'd shared during a college emergency. Shock rooted me in place, breath catching as fragments of recent conversations replayed. Julia had asked casually about my savings growth during a rare lunch, probing how I'd structured the high-yield account. Our parents followed up with vague requests for financial advice on their retirement, steering clear of specifics, but noting my firm's success. Now it connected. The subtle questions weren't interest. They were reconnaissance. I trusted them implicitly, wiring funds for Julia's past crises, a failed ad campaign, Kenneth's business startup. Without question, always framing it as sisterly support. But this crossed every line, turning loyalty into exploitation. I forwarded the statements to Nathan immediately, his reply pinging seconds later with a secure link to his audit. He outlined the trail. The money funneled into a down payment for a Seattle property under Julia and Kenneth's names, closing scheduled for next month. Forged documents propped up the purchase. Julia's agency invoices inflated to show phantom income, masking her gambling debts from online apps that Nathan traced back 6 months. Our parents' involvement surfaced in joint account transfers, small amounts at first to test the waters, then larger sums once they assumed I'd stay silent. The evidence piled up. Emails between Julia and our father discussing the loan as temporary, assurances that my firm could absorb it without notice. Disbelief twisted into a hollow ache, each revelation peeling back layers of the family narrative I'd accepted. Childhood favoritism had always stung. Julia getting new clothes for school events while I wore hand-me-downs, her ideas praised at dinner while mine earned shrugs. As adults, it persisted. I'd advised on their investments, growing their portfolio by 15% last year, yet they credited Julia's creative input in family updates. I'd swallowed it, believing persistence would shift their view. Now, staring at the screen, that illusion crumbled. They hadn't overlooked me. They'd calculated my usefulness, then discarded the rest. The wedding exclusion wasn't a mistake. It was the final erasure, timed to distract while they drained my security. Nathan called then. Voice low and urgent, confirming the forgery through metadata. IP addresses from our family home, timestamps during evenings I'd spent working late. He warned of potential legal exposure if unreported, suggesting I freeze the accounts immediately. I did, fingers moving on autopilot, but the action barely registered amid the surging emotions. Hurt flooded first, raw and disorienting. How could Julia, my confidant through teen heartbreaks, orchestrate this? Then anger ignited, sharp and unyielding, targeting the casual way they'd justified it in those emails. Susan's doing well. She won't mind helping. As if my success entitled them to steal it. I stepped back into the reception's edge, the party's warmth now suffocating. Guests danced near the family table, oblivious, while Julia accepted congratulations, her posture relaxed. Our parents raised glasses in her direction, their earlier chuckle about the seating replaying in my mind like a taunt. I approached slowly, not for confrontation yet, but to gauge. When I stood before them, my father glanced up, expression shifting to mild surprise before he implied the miscount was Julia's oversight, nothing personal. My mother added indirectly that space constraints force tough choices, her tone implying I should understand family priorities. Their words landed without volume but with full force, confirming the depth of detachment. No apology, no concern for my isolation amid the event I'd funded. Instead, a subtle deflection, as if my presence disrupted the celebration. Julia met my eyes briefly, then looked away, engaging Kenneth in quiet exchange that excluded me further. The trio's unity against my silent accusation fueled the resolve hardening inside. This wasn't isolated greed, it was a pattern weaponized, years of me funding their stability while they undermined mine. The shock evolved, not into hysteria, but a quiet steel. I wouldn't shatter the moment publicly, not yet. But the truth demanded exposure, and I now held the keys. Nathan texted coordinates for a discreet meet post-reception, promising deeper forensics on Julia's agency records. I nodded to myself, pocketing the phone as I watched the cake cutting begin without invitation for me to join. The exclusion amplified the theft's weight, personal and financial betrayal intertwined, pushing me from passive supporter to active guardian of my own worth. Tension built with every passing minute, the party's joy contrasting my inner storm. I slipped out a side exit, cool night air hitting like a signal. The revelation complete, the path forward clear. No more blind trust, only calculated steps to reclaim what was mine. The family I'd propped up had revealed their hand, and mine was stronger. The night air outside the hotel sharpened my focus as I met Nathan in the parking lot, his car idling under a distant streetlight. He handed over a tablet loaded with preliminary files, explaining the initial traces. The forged signatures matched patterns from Julia's past agency documents, and the transfers aligned with Kenneth's real estate queries. I absorbed the details without interrupting, the weight of evidence shifting from shock to strategy. No rash moves. This required precision, a plan built on facts to expose their actions without descending to their level. By morning, I'd returned to my apartment, spreading printouts across the kitchen table, bank statements, email chains, metadata logs, all pointing to a coordinated scheme. First, I secured my finances, contacting my bank's fraud team to flag the accounts and initiate a hold on further transactions. They confirmed the transfers, but noted the digital approvals appeared legitimate at first glance, underscoring the sophistication of the forgery. Nathan followed up with a full audit, uncovering deeper layers. Julia's agency had fabricated client invoices to inflate her credit for the house loan, while our parents' joint account received kickbacks disguised as consulting fees. The motive crystallized. Julia's gambling losses had spiraled, Kenneth's startup faltered, and they viewed my savings as an easy fix, assuming my family loyalty would silence any challenge. Each discovery fueled the tension. Not with blind fury, but with a calculated clarity. They underestimated my expertise in tracing financial trails. I reached out to Clara, my firm's lawyer, scheduling an urgent call. She reviewed the dossier over video, her assessment direct. Strong case for embezzlement and fraud, but evidence needed bolstering to avoid counterclaims of family dispute. She advised gathering witness statements and preparing for civil recovery, emphasizing that public exposure could amplify pressure without legal risks if handled carefully. I nodded, outlining my intent, not destruction, but accountability, forcing them to confront the consequences through their own networks. Clara suggested starting with a demand letter, but I opted for broader leverage, compiling a timeline to share selectively with key contacts like the real estate agent handling their purchase. Days blurred into focused work. I cross-referenced Julia's agency records, accessing public filings that revealed inconsistencies, overstated revenues masking debts from high-stakes poker apps. Nathan pulled transaction histories showing patterns, withdrawals timed to family gatherings when I'd be distracted. Our parents' involvement deepened the betrayal. Emails implied they endorsed the borrowing as payback for years of my selfish success, ignoring how I'd advised their investments to prevent earlier shortfalls. The planning phase intensified my internal shift, from the overlooked sister funding their lives to the architect dismantling their facade. Doubt flickered occasionally. Was exposure too personal? But each file reaffirmed the necessity. Silence would enable more theft. I mapped the rollout methodically. Step 1. Notify the Seattle realtor anonymously with proof of tainted funds, halting the closing without direct confrontation. Step 2. Forward agency discrepancies to her board via certified mail, prompting internal review that could lead to audits. For our parents, a subtle alert to their professional circles, father's clinic partners, mother's community group, framed as concern over financial irregularities, planting seeds of scrutiny. No outright accusations yet. Let the documents imply the deceit, mirroring how they'd erased me. Tension mounted as I rehearsed scenarios. Julia's denial, Kenneth's deflection, parents' pleas. My responses stayed measured in simulations, focusing on facts over emotion. Nathan joined a late-night session, adding forensic details. IP logs tying transfers to their home router, contradicting any claim of hacking. He cautioned about retaliation, potential smears on my firm, but I countered with safeguards, like client alerts preempting rumors. The plan evolved into a web of accountability: recover the funds legally, disrupt their gains socially, all while preserving my reputation. Hours passed in silence, broken only by typing, the stack of evidence growing. Anger transformed into cold precision. I envisioned their reactions, not panic from violence, but unraveling from truth's weight. This wasn't vengeance for its sake. It was restitution, ensuring they faced the imbalance they'd enforced. By week's end, the dossier was complete. 50 pages of irrefutable links, time-stamped and notarized. Clara approved the structure, adding clauses for negotiation if they confessed voluntarily. I paused at the window, city lights reflecting my resolve. The wedding's laughter haunted less now, replaced by anticipation of balance restored. No more propping them up. The plan positioned me in control, turning victimhood into empowerment. Tension peaked in the quiet before action, every detail scrutinized, every risk mitigated. The transformation solidified, from fractured trust to unyielding strategy, ready to reflect their betrayal back at them. The reception's toasts had barely faded when I returned to the hall's edge, dossier excerpts in a slim folder under my arm. Guests clustered around the cake, but I moved toward the microphone stand, signaling the DJ for a brief pause. Clara's advice echoed. Present facts, let reactions unfold. I stepped forward as the music dipped, voice steady over the hum. The announcement cut through. My funding of the entire event. The absent seat, the $200,000 theft via forged signatures. Murmurs rippled immediately, forks pausing midair. I held up printed statements, timestamps visible, implying the transfers linked directly to Julia's account and the Seattle property deal. Julia froze mid-conversation with Kenneth, her hand tightening on a glass before she implied the money was a loan, not theft, through a quick whisper to nearby relatives. Our parents shifted, father suggesting family matters stayed private, his tone indirect as he gestured for me to step down. But the room's energy shifted. Cousins who'd shared holiday toasts with me leaned in, scanning the papers I passed to the head table. A business associate of Kenneth's pulled out his phone, cross-checking the account details against public records. The exposure landed not as chaos, but as a slow unraveling. Guests exchanging glances, whispers building into open questions directed at the family. I retreated without further words, leaving the folder on a side table for anyone to review. Outside, Nathan waited, confirming the anonymous packet to the realtor had dispatched, evidence of tainted funds attached to the house closing. By midnight, my phone buzzed with updates. The realtor halted proceedings, citing verification needs, stranding Julia and Kenneth's plans. Tension from the hall followed me home, but satisfaction edged in. The public mirror reflected their deceit without my direct attack. Sleep came fitfully, dreams laced with their earlier laughter turning to stammers. Morning brought escalation. Julia's agency board received the certified envelope, discrepancies in her invoices, gambling app receipts tied to offshore transfers. Nathan's forensics had pinpointed the inflation, fake client deals padding revenues by 40%, enough to secure loans but crumbling under scrutiny. The board's response was swift. An internal audit launched, suspending Julia pending review. She texted indirectly through a mutual friend, implying desperation for a meeting to explain, but I archived it, focusing on the next thread. For our parents, the subtle alerts to their circles activated. Father's clinic partner queried retirement investments, probing irregularities in joint accounts. Mother's community liaison mentioned anonymous tips on financial ethics. Consequences cascaded through the week. The house deal collapsed entirely, realtor withdrew, citing fraud risks, forcing Julia and Kenneth to forfeit the deposit from my stolen funds. Julia's suspension turned permanent as clients pulled contracts, her agency's stock dipping in local filings. Revenue reports showed the house of cards folding, debt surfacing that no bailout could cover. Our parents faced fallout at work. Father's partners demanded account audits, implying trust erosion. Mother's group events thinned, invitations drying as whispers of family impropriety spread. They called repeatedly, voicemails blending pleas with accusations, implying my actions destroyed harmony, but each one reinforced the justice. Their choices, not mine, triggered the collapse. I monitored from afar, Clara handling legal filings for recovery, a civil suit filed quietly, seeking restitution through asset freezes. The $200,000 began repatriating in tranches, first from agency reimbursements, then parental joint holdings. Kenneth attempted a counter, emailing business contacts to downplay the theft as misunderstanding, but the dossier's circulation neutralized it. His startup pitches faltered, investors citing ethical concerns. Julia's isolation deepened, former colleagues distanced, her networking events empty. The family's unity fractured. Parents blamed her recklessness indirectly in leaked messages, while she pointed to their encouragement. Satisfaction grew not from their pain, but from the balance restored. My firm thrived amid the noise, new clients inquiring after the story's viral undercurrent in spoken circles. Nathan updated the audit, confirming no further drains. Tension peaked in a final confrontation Julia forced at a neutral cafe, her posture defeated as she implied regret through halting admissions. I responded with facts only, the recovery terms via Clara, leaving her to absorb the weight. No embrace, no forgiveness, just the mirror held firm. Consequences rippled outward. The wedding's erased seat echoed in their emptied lives, proving betrayal's cost without a single raised voice. Respect for the process settled in me. Their downfall self-inflicted, my role merely illumination. The storm broke, clarity emerging as their web dissolved. Weeks after the confrontation, the legal filings took hold, Clara confirming the court's asset freeze on Julia's agency remnants and the parental joint accounts. Tranches of the $200,000 returned incrementally, first $50,000 from liquidated holdings, then more as liens attached to the failed house deal. No full restitution yet, but the process grounded me, transforming raw anger into methodical oversight. I monitored updates through secure portals, each deposit a quiet affirmation, control reclaimed not through force, but persistence. Nathan assisted with final audits, verifying no lingering vulnerabilities, his steady input a reminder that alliances beyond blood endured. Family outreach intensified then waned. Julia sent messages via shared contacts, implying remorse through vague offers to repay in installments, but Clara intercepted them, channeling responses to formal terms only. Our parents left voicemails blending demands for retraction with indirect admissions of oversight, suggesting Julia's desperation drove the theft. I blocked the lines after the third, the act severing the last tether without fanfare. Kenneth attempted a single email to my firm, downplaying his role as peripheral, but it routed to spam. His startup's investor pullback ensured silence followed. Their pleas echoed the old pattern, deflection over accountability, but now they bounced off reinforced boundaries. I changed my phone number mid-month, notifying clients and allies through a brief update, framing it as a security upgrade post-incident. The move symbolized deeper cuts, updating estate documents to exclude them entirely, redirecting charitable ties to neutral causes. No dramatic announcements, just practical steps erasing access points. Tension from potential backlash faded as rumors in spoken circles shifted from speculation to acceptance, my firm's reputation intact, inquiries turning to new opportunities rather than scandal. A regional bank approached for a partnership, their due diligence clearing my name amid the family's tarnish. Harper Wealth Fund expanded under the clarity. I onboarded 3 junior advisors, delegating portfolio reviews to focus on strategic growth, seminars on ethical investing drawing crowds, revenue climbing 20% from referrals. The office relocation to a riverside building streamlined operations, each meeting reinforcing independence. Nathan and I reviewed quarterly projections over coffee, his analysis confirming stability. The betrayal's scar tissue strengthened resolve, turning vulnerability into expertise. Clients shared similar stories indirectly, trusting my handling as proof of discretion and strength. Personal shifts settled in gradually. I purchased the condo overlooking the Spokane River, closing on a Friday with funds from the recovered tranche. Its layout simple, view expansive, a daily anchor against past storms. Morning started with routine checks. Accounts balanced, no alerts, the habit rebuilding confidence without obsession. Clara advised on tax implications, deducting fraud losses to offset gains, her guidance underscoring the system's safeguards when activated. No therapy sought yet, but journaling the timeline process lingering hurt. Entries factual, charting from exclusion to empowerment. Mentoring began organically. A women's finance network invited me to speak, where I outlined recovery basics without naming names, reporting steps, boundary setting, the power of documentation. Attendees nodded, one sharing a parallel embezzlement tale, her questions met with practical redirects to regulators. The exchange healed indirectly, positioning me as guide rather than victim, the role affirming worth untied to family validation. Nathan joined a session, contributing audit tips, our collaboration evolving into informal consultations for others. Months later, updates trickled. Julia's agency dissolved fully, her attempts at freelance gigs stalled by reference checks. Kenneth's startup folded, creditors pursuing remnants. Our parents downsized, selling the family home to cover liens, their social circle contracting as clinic partners distanced and community roles lapsed. Whispers reached me through neutral channels, regret expressed in passing, but no direct apologies pursued. I absorbed the news neutrally, the cycle broken. Their consequences self-wrought. My involvement ended at illumination. Spokane's rhythm resumed, my days filled with client meetings and market analyses, the weddings echo distant. The empty seat transformed in reflection, not defeat, but catalyst for severance. Internal peace arrived not in triumph, but release. No need for their acknowledgement, strength derived from self-sufficiency. I walked the river path evenings, steps measured, horizon clear. The moral crystallized quietly. They unraveled their own bonds through greed. I forged new ones through clarity. Freedom tasted like steady breath, unburdened by expectation. Anyone shadowed by betrayal could step forward similarly, report, protect, rebuild. Worth stood inherent, paths self-charted.